what have you seen in terms of AI and how people, maybe students, maybe that's educators, maybe that's people in higher ed, how has that adoption into AI looked for you? Are people splitting up into two distinct camps? Is it a very like dynamic, maybe spectrum of what you're seeing?
I think when we first talked about this, it was very much of people who are like against it and maybe people who are for it. And in one way, I made a kind of a comment that what I'm actually more concerned about are the people in the middle who aren't even paying it any attention to say I'm for it or against it, right? That we need a little bit more of a mindful approach. So it's really something that everybody should. Um, And I guess what I'm seeing, like, again, I think everybody, there's some fear because we don't know really where it's going, where it's going to take us, right? Are we losing our jobs, not losing our job? Are we losing personal contact? Again, from an educational perspective, will we lose our jobs because they can have an avatar that is so personable that they don't need to, you know, hire a real person? Um, Again, just the data concerns, the again, cheating or the environmental concerns. And then again, I think there are others that people are going to use things inappropriately or cheat or whatever. And then so yes, we need to educate so to sort of stop that, but we also can use it to increase learning and thinking and creativity. So I guess my revised answer is there's sort of the three camps, right? The people for, people against, and the people who aren't spending enough time really investigating it and seeing how it works. And if I guess I had another message is like many things, like are we taking in enough data points to make a decision, both good or bad? Like am because I'm sort of in the camp that I like this. Am I only sort of reading it's the halo bias there where I'm only gonna be or the confirmation bias, I should probably say, right? I'm only reading things that say this is awesome and not spending really enough time thinking about other things. And then vice versa, the people, who don't want to use it, are you also spending enough time to say, well, where could it be beneficial? So, do you see anything similar or different in the I guess your counseling professional side about camps,
I want to be careful with how I word this, and I almost want to save it for later, but I think I'm going to jump into it now. And you used this analogy earlier, but I'm going to steal it and make it sound like it's my analogy. Uh, it's like sex, essentially. So, like, there's this camp of abstinence per se, which don't touch it, don't do anything that even looks close to that. And I've seen that, like, in terms of AI. So I work with a lot of high schoolers, and AI is for unfortunately for a lot of my clients and just young people that I work with, their first experiences that they have with AI is don't do it. And to be told again and again and again, don't touch AI, don't do anything with AI because it can help you complete assignments quicker. Or if you use it the way that you might, you could just cheat on things. And so a lot of schools, especially high schools, high schools and middle schools, their policy typically is just no AI whatsoever in any circumstances. And you see that in the way that teachers kind of navigate. You see that in the programs that are available to people. The you run an essay through something online, it'll tell you if it's been AI generated. That's something that's super popular. So the culture, especially with young people and high schoolers, is don't touch AI if it has anything to do with your job. And I'm putting that in quotes, your job, because my clients' jobs are school typically. So they're taking that in as okay, my job, school is really important, and I'm taking in this message that I cannot touch it. So that abstinence kind of piece to it. So that's typically what I get from like the adults per se that my young people are working with. granted, there are some things that I've seen with young people that are just against AI, regardless of what the adults around them tell them, for a variety of different reasons. Things that I think are definitely worth exploring. The first one being like the environment. I don't know the data. I'd have to look up the data on that, on how much energy does it take for like one ChatGPT search as opposed to a Google search, and just like apparently that's such a huge difference that a lot of my clients that are very or a lot of young people that are worry about the environment and our climate have a very hard time dealing with not dealing with have a very hard time adopting ChatGPT and AI because of that reason. um I another example that I think is worth exploring and talking about is, and you and I had chatted about it earlier, is Duolingo. So Duolingo, for our listeners that don't know what Duolingo is, it's essentially an app that is used to help people learn different languages. They have just a huge social media following. It's just impressive what they've done with their marketing. I think that it's probably like it's got to be some 18-year-old that they're paying a crazy amount of money to do all their marketing and all their memes and stuff. So they're amazing. They've just done a really good job marketing towards young people. Within the last 2 weeks of us recording this, their CEO has, gone out to say, "Hey, we're going to completely go headfirst into AI, and we're going to use it to, create, more products and make us more efficient." Which sounds like a win-win. I mean, it sounds like a duh thing, like, "Awesome, that's great," like, you're like a smart business practice. The generations that they've been marketing to for years completely rejected them because of that step of being like anti-AI. You're losing your almost like you're losing your integrity by doing it. So I see those two camps, both from adults and from young people, of 100% against AI, don't wanna touch it, especially from our artists. There's a lot of big pieces there, a lot of, the ethics of, like, do you use AI in art? Should ChatGPT be able to make me into a Pixar character? Is that allowed? Does that steal someone's creative integrity? So there's those pieces, at least from that camp of being super against it. Dr. Keener, what are your thoughts with everything that I just
Well, I got like 20 thoughts there, but so one thought in no particular order is I wonder when before cameras were invented, and if you wanted a picture of something, somebody had to paint a landscape, right? And then I wonder how when cameras came out, right, and we could now take pictures of landscapes versus paint a picture of landscapes, was there this similar discussion or divide, like one is inherently better or the other, or like what I this is too simple, it's too easy to get a take a picture of, and that type of thing. But then, right, as time progressed, there is art in taking a picture, right? Knowing how to get lighting right and shadows and all that. Well, then there was digital photography where you could see the picture, right? And then take another one if you didn't like it. And so now there's like you hear this camp, well, this person perhaps was a better photographer because they didn't have that, right? They didn't have that. And now there's so much editing features within digital. It's like, well, so I guess, is there this natural progression in being efficient, being to create? And so when you were just talking about what is art, or what is AI generated of this, is this art? I don't have an answer to that. I just like to seeing that transition. The one, I guess, going back to what you originally started, so we're a little bit all over the place, but that's my brain, is, talking about sex education, right? And again, abstinence versus, I guess, protection, or again, safe sex, or again, just knowledge of. And maybe from a counseling substance abuse side, right? We have this model called harm reduction, right? And so I was sort of thinking about those two in relation to AI. And so is there a harm reduction model? And then I said, well, I don't like that because, like in harm reduction, you're already using something in excess, right? And you have to step back. And so I think we should be proactive. So my brain thinking, so you're going to hear it first, right? We are dropping the mic here, mentor moments. We said it first. We want a benefit promotion model versus a harm reduction, right? So we want to get students early to benefit them. This is how you should use it, right? And to benefit you versus sort of because again, even like if we think of other social medias, we're sort of now trying to do a harm reduction model. Right now, all these platforms are putting these safeguards in for parental controls, or you can't have it until you're 13 or you're 15, or and so again, let's try to be a little bit more proactive. And so again, I guess that with tying to that, I've been thinking a lot about developmentally appropriate practice. So from an educational perspective, again, college, should we teach first year students to use AI in this way and maybe put more limits on it versus if they were in grad school or fourth year, they have a foundational knowledge, so that we let some of the safeguards off and they can use it in another way. So again, I don't know the answer, but I'm just trying. Like again, um, we don't let people drive to a certain age. I guess you can drink before you're 21, but again, at least there's that limit there, right? You're not supposed to, I don't know, use a gun until you're this age, right? I guess I don't know that for sure, right? Is there you need to be a certain age? I don't have guns, so I don't know, right?
I don't know.
Yeah. You assume, right? You assume a 5-year-old wouldn't be able to use a gun, right? So whatever that age is, right? Or there's training courses. Um, and so again, maybe that's a model. I've been reading a little bit in the higher ed literature too, and that they're talking that we need more of an ethical or an accountability culture for students not wanting to cheat, regardless of method, whether it's AI or other. So
You kind of see this in the failure of the Dare program. I mean, we're going down a big rabbit hole here, but like, I mean, you see that with Dare, which is they kind of in talking about don't do drugs, don't do drugs, don't do drugs. All it did was make people want to do drugs, and it didn't really do its purpose. And so, what people are finding now is like kind of not necessarily teaching people how to do drugs, I'd say, but providing more knowledge. Being able to use something safely. Uh, you do pick up on something which is my brain is going all over the place. I don't know. It's really hard for me to think about developmental, like what is the right age to be implementing AI? Not age, but maybe like at what grade, from an education standpoint, or just for young people, do you start allowing them to use AI? And unfortunately, we don't really have much of a control over that because AI is in everything now. If I were to open up like a Snapchat like app, there's like the first thing I think that pops up is like Snapchat AI. Like it's the first thing. So if a child opened up a Snapchat account, the first thing that pops up is AI. And they're able to talk to this AI the same way how like ChatGPT is just available. So should there be safeguards on that of like, you can't, utilize AI until a certain age when you feel like it's quote unquote developmentally appropriate? I don't know. I feel like we could talk a lot about that. So we're chatting about people who, are sort of 110% against AI, don't want to touch it, are very, against it. I'm curious about the other end of the spectrum, those that believe that AI is the 110% future and we need to adopt it in everything and all that we do. Are there pitfalls to that? Is that something that we should be adopting? What are your thoughts?
well, I guess I would say with anything, we need to be mindful with how we're using it. So to go 100% in, I wouldn't advocate as well. I did a workshop here with at Maryville, and it was with some adjuncts, some part time faculty, and one of them sent me an article from I think it was the New York Times, and it was called "Professors." The professors are using ChatGPT, and some students aren't happy about it. So, what was sort of fun or unique about this article? Well, it really talked about the sort of both the possibilities and the concerns. But what was sort of the opening story was a student found out that a faculty member that was using ChatGPT to create PowerPoint and other assignments. And the student felt like it was a double standard because we're told we can't use it, but yet now we're using it. And this was sort of an expensive private institution, and this student end up suing the institution for their tuition back for that semester because and I think there's some value in that again, and some of they had a couple different similar stories where students discovered like feedback was chat gpt generated whether we if faculty should use it or not, but they didn't do a good job of editing the output so they could tell that it was chat gpt generated. So then there was this feeling, well, did the faculty member read my paper at all? And, I've heard this secondhand, not firsthand. I guess in the state of California, I don't know if it was state schools, but there was legislation in or at least in one higher ed institution that all courses would be taught by real individuals. And so, to me, I know maybe I'm not really answering, I'm going more to the gray area is like, Maryville created an avatar for me, so it's my real person. Well, it was a picture, a video of me. The program is text to speech, so it's I write what I want to say, and then the video is created. And there are some around our institution that think that's, I'm giving a false impression of something. That's not me. Where I see a little bit more of a gray area. Yes, I didn't go to a recording studio and physically record it, but the program recorded me saying words that now when I type something, it creates again me speaking. Um and so again, is that not a real person? And now again, I'm also part of the class and whatnot. So I think we would still be fine saying that this class was still taught by a real person. Um, so I don't know. There's this area, but I guess maybe if we want to say what like somebody who's, I guess this is where I was going back to. I guess I don't know if this is this issue or another podcast, but I said when what I am trying to do when I'm using generative AI in the classroom is look at it a lens from understanding and learning. How is what am I doing? Why am I using this type of technology? How is it supporting student learning and how is it meeting the goal versus, oh, I think it would be neat to have a video of me in class. So I'm just going to throw a video in of me, right? Like that's not a learning purpose. Again, I think there's again, just maybe some examples if we have listeners, well, how are we using it? Well, I think being a counselor, before somebody goes to their first clinical, we can build an AI agent to act as a client, and you can practice your counseling skills in a totally safe environment, really work on yes, you're typing it out, but really work on how is this an empathetic statement? Or if I'm saying I'm doing a solution focused perspective, how are the questions solution focused? Um, so we can do it that way. And even taking a step even before that, we can say practice motivational interviewing and we want to have the student practice listening for change talk so we can get generated hypothetical things that a client would say to us, and then we can practice listening for are they wanting to change, not to change, or stay the same, and again practice that. So there's some real life benefit before then getting to maybe a role play with a classmate before you're going on to your first clinical, right? So there are some scaffolding there. There are some true benefits there. So I guess I'm gonna stop there, and I see your brain working, Brayton. So
it's tough. You know, having been a student just about 3 years ago, I still operate from a student lens sometimes, and I just think about how do we model effectively? Well, I mean, those are all really good examples. I mean, despite me I'm not I always wonder if modeling is enough for students. I mean, I think that you pick up on something that's really, really important, which is like, okay, if my professor is using AI in every single assignment and is using it as like, not in every single assignment, but is using it as support, why can't I? Um, and well, I mean, I've watched how my professor does it, and I've watched how my professor uses AI in his assignments or like in his lectures. I want to do the same. And there is such a stark disconnect of, I think, creativity of, well, I mean, I can only have AI help me to a certain degree until I cheat, which comes back to the whole idea of like, well, I watched my parents drive since I was a child, since ever I could remember, and I was always in the back seat. And they modeled for me how to drive, but I still had to take a class. I couldn't just say, "Oh, well, I can drive because I watched my parents do it all the time and I was in the car and I kinda, they kinda showed me the nuts and bolts." I had to go to a class and I had to take, you know, I had to take a test and all those other pieces, and so I wonder, just like how we're modeling as educators and as professionals, where does curriculum enter the mix? Where does, like, assessment enter the mix?
Well, I guess I would say, again, to me, this goes back to our conversation about developmentally appropriate practice. So we need to sort of provide a standard or say this is acceptable use or not acceptable use. And that's a class norm then, right? So then it wouldn't be fair for the instructor to use it in a way that wasn't deemed appropriate, just like a student. At Maryville, we sort of have like if we are doing if we're asking the student to do an assignment, we are trying now to put like a thumbs up. That means you can use generative AI for whatever you want. Thumbs down, you can't use it at all. And I don't know what the third one, I don't know if it's a sideways thumb, but like there's limits. Okay, you can use it for this, but not for this. I just heard an example of a student at Maryville that it was an online course, and the course required a student to do a presentation. So, from my understanding, they created the knowledge themselves. Like whatever the material was that they were presenting on, they created. So, not AI generated. But what they did was either they bought a program or used a free program and had AI create a person to deliver the presentation. So the content was awesome, right? That the student developed, but then they had again this avatar of whoever present it. And so it caused the professor and the program director to really think, well, what was the goal of the assignment? Did they need to learn how to present? It's an online environment, so they're just recording and nobody's listening to it in real time. So it's not like they need to present and then be able to answer questions in real time. Was it content deliver like was it developing content? Well, okay, they did that on their own. And so it goes back to, as I was saying before, what's the intent of the learning? How is the assignment meeting that? And then what can be used or not used to do that? Um, so again, I
Which is
just
tough.
yeah, I don't know how they ruled on that case, but
I don't know, and I think the theme that we keep coming back to, but we haven't necessarily, like, said it out loud is, like, the ethics of it and, like, AI ethics, and it's something that, I mean, granted, you and I have talked about plenty, and I mean, you've given, plenty of presentations and talks about it, but I don't know, like, there aren't many technologies that we've had in which I feel like the ethics has had to be something that we necessarily teach. Like, I don't know, like, maybe there was computer ethics. Was that ever something that w
I
that
would say the
did?
closest that I had to that is, again, during the pandemic and when everybody shifted to virtual counseling and we had to talk about the ethics of distance, like, is the platform secure? Who do we know is there safe words? Do we know if somebody's in the room, there or not there? What can we put in a chat, not put in a chat? Um, do we know where they are? Are they in the same state as you? So that was to me the closest where we specifically had to talk about sort of technology ethics for a specific thing versus just talking like big umbrella. I mean, there's always confidentiality and though do not harm. That are some specific cases, dual roles, but
And so I guess this takes us, like, to the big question, I suppose, and it's a lofty one, and it's probably not a yes or no answer, but it's that question of, are we, as educators, are we, effectively teaching the general population how to use AI? That's kind of the big overarching theme here. Like, are we doing it effectively?
it's probably too early to tell. And I mm, didn't again, I remember, I guess, when ChatGPT first came out and hearing the federal government talking about what are the ethical standards, like, what are the safeguards for just the sort of the tech companies and I mean, maybe we'll talk about this on another episode, but the monetizing of like a Chat GPT, when are we gonna start seeing ads on the sidebar, right? And are large language model I mean, again, we know the large language models are biased, and so, where are they getting their data from? And so, again, so are we teaching it well? Probably not, or maybe we are assuming people are using it for good, or, again, I think it's sort of too early to tell yet. I mean, we had a faculty meeting yesterday, and I brought this up, like, what its parallel is, I taught a Psych 101 class for the first time. My assumption and arrogance or ignorance is always teaching grad students. I knew whether if they learned it or not, they were taught APA before getting to me. Now teaching Psych 101 for the first time, I don't know when APA formatting is introduced. So is that and again, is that my role? Is that in another class? Then a writing class? Is that and so who we do have some classes that teach, coding and Excel and Word and so now is generative AI going to be part of that? Is that something new? That's something different? I think that all needs to be, determined.
Which is really hard because, like, after that question, then my brain goes to, like, who's responsible, right? So, like, like, a curriculum board, like, who who where like, who are the people on the front lines that determine this of, like, "Okay, we need to start," I mean, I just keep coming back to ISYS. For the listeners, that don't know what that is, that was, like, the course or it was essentially like the "Do you know how to use technology?" course, for I think undergrad students at Maryville was, "Do you know how to use Word? Do you know how to use an iPad? And do you know how to use Excel? Like, do you know how to use the basic, like, pillars of technology?" And I wonder, like, where and when does AI get put into that? Does it become its own specific class? Uh, yeah, I don't know. Those are big
And
questions.
even like,
I don't know if we know the
and
answers.
and then when does that then trickle down to K-12 and then maybe even elementary school? Because right, I think we've all seen young children know how to use an iPad or an iPhone or a tablet, right? You know, and like you said, what TikTok opens up and they gives you the prompt for AI generation to create what you want to say when so
Yeah.
w-
Well, long before a 4th grader takes an AI class, Mark Zuckerberg will have already taught them how to use AI. Like, that's just a fact. It's just a part of our life now. I don't think that it's going away. And so, how do we as educators effectively and ethically get ahead of that for our young people uh, before they're taught by?
Benefit promotion, not harm reduction. We got to do
So, I guess to wrap things up, and I guess to wrap it up with more big, lofty questions, what role do educators have in this? What role do counselors have in this? Maybe just what role do professionals have? I suppose we'll start there.
I think it's awesome when professions like counseling have a written code of ethics versus maybe other professions that say, yes, we want to act ethically, but they sort of don't have sort of these guiding principles or a specific code. Um, and so again, do no harm, protect our clients are our number one concern, do no harm, but also benefit if so it would be interesting. Again, I know we can't put every single thing in a code of ethics, but um, we did see an expanding of technology in the counseling code of ethics because of the pandemic. And so again, is this another if a not to deceive your client, like if avatars are that great, if you are think you're being counseled by a real person, that it is a real person. And even like we had a conversation about, you know, having AI generate a report that you would defend in court.
Can you say that one more time?
Yeah,
AI report in court.
yeah, like if you were one of our faculty does a lot of legal work, and if there was a program that was AI generated of a report on whatever, client X or something, you signed off on it, so you're saying it's your work, but is that I guess another lawsuit waiting to happen if I guess again, if you say it was your work and not acknowledge it, it was AI, it's different versus saying AI did contribute to this and then you reviewed it and still signed off on it, I think is different. But again, like where is this where is the area of acknowledging it, trying to hide it or not using it at all, right? And making judgments on somebody, right? If we're in court, that there's some kind of higher level stakes there.
Yeah, it's tough. I don't like answering lofty, detailed questions with simplified answers. I don't know. It feels like a cop out, but I mean, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head, which is kind of just coming back to values. Like, is the way you're using it fitting with the values of your profession? Is it fitting? Yeah, bingo.
Laws, morals, and ethics, right? Are we in alignment?
Absolutely. Oh, okay. I feel like this is a good. You feel like this is a good place to wrap up.
Yeah,
What are your
let's
thoughts?
wrap up. It's given us, for our listeners to chew on. So
Yes. Couple big announcements to let you all know. Over this summer, the summer 2025, Dr. Keener and I will be doing lots of recordings for season 5 of Mentora Moments. So be prepared. We have season 5 in the books, and season 4 is now in the books. And season 5 will be right around the corner. We plan on releasing that first episode of season 5 in August. You'll be hearing from us with more information on what that it will entail.
maybe even August 14th.
I was just about to say, I was trying to find the exact date that we had, August 14th.
That's my birthday, so maybe that's why I.
I mean, who's counting, right? I mean, yeah, like it's in
Well,
my
yeah, I'll be 54. I'm happy to tell people that, but
54.
54. Yeah,
That's exciting. Oh my gosh.
yeah.
What have you learned? What maybe this is your mentor moment for getting close to 54 years old.
Again, it's not necessarily earth shattering, but it is the small things that make the world go round. So, yeah, I mean, just enjoying a day, being with loved ones, doing work that's worth doing work worth doing, loving what you do. You can do podcasts with you. I mean, like that's if that's not the best thing, I don't know what is.
Couple reflective questions for the audience. Be sure to let us know in the comments or on our social media, or give us a DM with any of your answers. But a couple questions to chew on are: would you consider yourself to be a digital native or a digital immigrant? And then, would you consider yourself to be an immigrant or native around AI? How do you feel about your current understanding of AI? Do you feel like you know quite a lot about it? Do you feel like you know absolutely nothing? And we would love to hear your thoughts about this episode. If you like what you've heard, please give us a like and make sure that you subscribe on wherever you're listening to Mentor Moments. And we hope that you stay tuned.